para mí son... But it only shows one aircraft. All right, whatever.
Bird dogs?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They're a minute out. You hear them? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 64th Annual Torrance Armed Services Day Parade. My name is Emmett Miller. Straight overhead, we have a bird dog, Cessna L-19. And apparently we're going to have two of those aircraft. But give a look, give a listen, as the Torrance Police Department motor detail makes its entry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Torrance Police Department Motor Detail. And I'd like to introduce them. Established in 1928. Round of applause for these guys. The City of Torrance was one of the first agencies in Los Angeles County to adopt a motor detail, and they do everything. Traffic enforcement, DUI, fighting crime within the City of Torrance. And we can see that bird dog circling back around. Cessna L-19, entering service in the Korea War, by the way. Used largely as an observation aircraft, a spotter to guide artillery fire onto the target. And by the way, our Torrance motor detail is being assisted today by motor officers from the cities of El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Redondo Beach. One more round of applause, please. And ladies and gentlemen, approaching the stage, the Joint Services Color Guard, commanded by SFC Wu Lee. National Colors presented by Christopher Mills. United States Army Colors presented by SSG Robert Barringer. And the Marine Corps flag presented by Sergeant Ryan Neves. United States Navy flag, MA2 Jeremy Collins. United States Air Force flag presented by TSGT Mark Brindis. And the Coast Guard flag, of course. United States Space Forces color, presented by Captain Jose Avalos Jr., and the guard protecting the left of the national colors, SSG Stephen Keeve, United States Army, and the guard on the right is SSG Oscar Argumedo. And approaching the stand, ladies and gentlemen, our Grand Marshal for today's parade. The Grand Marshal of the 64th Annual Torrance Armed Forces Day Parade, Brigadier General Omar J. Randall. Brigadier General Randall, a native of the Bronx, New York, a graduate of the University of Connecticut. Commissioned in May 1996, he's commanded Fleet Marine Force Logistics units at the Platoon, Company, Battalion, and regimental levels, recently serving as the Deputy Commander, Marine Forces Reserve and Marine Forces South, currently serving as the Commanding General, 1st Marine Logistics Group, Marine Expeditionary Force in Camp Pendleton, California. Round of applause, please. Brigadier General Randall's headquarters assignments include Joint Logistics Planner, U.S. Central Command, Section and Branch Head, Installation Logistics, Headquarters, U.S. Marine Corps, Logistics, Combat Element Integration Division, Combat and Development Integration, and Headquarters at the U.S. Marine Corps once again. May I welcome our honorary Grand Marshal, Ernest Gunny Napper, United States Marine Corps. Ernest Gunny Napper, a retired U.S. Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, former Disneyland security cast member, widely recognized for turning the daily flag retreat ceremony on Main Street, USA, into a deeply patriotic tribute to veterans. Gunny Napper was raised in Richmond, Virginia, serving 22 years in the Marine Corps, including deployments in the Vietnam War and the Gulf War. And following his military career, he spent nearly 30 years at Disneyland. He led the lowering of the flag with a focus on honoring veterans in attendance, often greeting them personally with handshakes and salutes, a dedication to service and tradition, making him a beloved figure among guests and cast, earning him the Walt Disney Legacy Award in 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, Gunny Napper. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor George Chen. Elected to the City Council June 8, 2018, elected Mayor June 7, 2022. Mayor Chen's been a resident of Torrance for 34 years. Riding with him today, his wife, Amy Chen. The driver is United States Air Force veteran Kevin Hetrick. Passenger is United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Alan Wigdahl. Mayor Chen writes, I'm honored to serve as your Torrance City Mayor on the 64th Annual Armed Forces Day Parade, celebrating our nation's 250th birthday. Mayor Chen, ladies and gentlemen. Council Member Bridget Lewis, ladies and gentlemen. Appointed to the City Council August 2022, elected for a full term March 24. Councilmember Lewis has been a resident of Torrance since 2004. And riding with her today, United States Army Sergeant First Class David Hepburn, Commander of the 201st TD U.S. Army Harbor Master. Councilmember Lewis writes, on Parade Day, we come together as one community to honor every service member, past and present, to celebrate the tradition that unites Torrance in gratitude and respect. Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Here for you, ma'am. And ladies and gentlemen, you hear this referenced a lot. It is our 250th birthday. Some of you may call it the semi-quincentennial. Others may call it the bi-sesquicentennial. Others, the sesquicentennial. It is the 250th birthday, and on the 4th of July, we'll all be celebrating that, so you hear it referenced again and again, where we honor our military, we honor our nation, we honor everything that we've done up until now. Our fight for freedom continues as it was started 250 years ago. Council Member Assam Sheikh, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause, please. Elected to the City Council on June 7th, 2022, Councilmember Sheikh. Been a resident of Torrance for almost 20 years. Riding with him today is spouse Jill Bonilla, their daughter Sarah, their son John. Councilmember Sheikh writes, as captain of the local tennis team, always open to conversation on and off the court. He honors the brave men and women of our armed forces for their service, their sacrifice on this Armed Forces Day. Thank you, Councilman Sheikh. And as many of you are aware, every year the Armed Forces Day Parade celebrates one branch of the military. This year, it's the Marines, our branch of honor. So many of the assets you see come by, many of the dignitaries, a lot of the folks in uniform that you'll be shaking hands to and saying thank you for your service, sir, will be Marine Corps personnel. Military personnel generally trained to operate on both land and sea with a particular focus on amphibious warfare. As the parade goes along, when I get a chance, I'll tell you a little bit more about the Marine Corps, what their mission is, when they started, how they started, what they do, and what they do when we're not even watching as the parade moves on. Ladies and gentlemen, Councilmember Sharon Kalani. Elected to the City Council March 2020, re-elected in March 2024. Councilmember Kalani, a resident of Torrance for 45 years. Riding with her today, her friends Dick Amemlia, Charlie Salinas, Sam Batchelor. Councilmember Kalani says that Dick is a Vietnam vet. He served in the 1st Infantry Division of the Big Red One. His base camp was 35 miles from Saigon. He's now an active member of the Vietnam Veterans of the American South Bay, Chapter 52. Round of applause for him, sir. Charlie Salinas is a veteran and Purple Heart recipient, serving from 1967 to 69, commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Hollywood chapter. He was the guy responsible for convincing the California DMV that charging $53 for a Purple Heart driver's license and license plate was improper. So today the license plate's free. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Council Member Aurelio Matucci, ladies and gentlemen. Elected to the City Council on June 2018, re-elected June 2022. Round of applause for him, please. Councilmember Matucci moved to Torrance in 1977, riding with him today. His son, Giuseppe. Councilmember Matucci writes, as the ad hoc chair of the Armed Forces Day Committee, Mr. Matucci deeply admires our armed forces, their steadfast dedication, their sacrifices. They protect not only the United States, but they protect our allies. They protect our partners in the world. And Councilman Matucci salutes them. Round of applause. And approaching the stand, even as we speak, Councilmember John Kaji. Round of applause, please. Elected to the City Council in June of 2022, Councilmember Kaji's been a resident of Torrance for 18 years. Riding with him today is his wife, Lisa Kaji. Councilmember Kaji writes that his father, Bruce, was a World War II Army veteran. And we thank him for his service. And we thank you for your service, sir. Approaching the reviewing stand, Councilmember Jeremy Garrison. Elected to the City Council March 5th, 2024, he's been a resident of Torrance for 40 years. Riding with him today, his wife, Dr. Jennifer Garrison, their daughter, Aurora, their son, William. Councilmember Jeremy Garrison was a Torrance High School graduate, former Torrance teacher, and former Torrance School Board member. Thank you for being such a valuable part of our community, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, our city clerk, Rebecca Poirier. First elected city clerk, June 2014, re-elected in 18 and 22. City clerk Poirier has been living in Torrance for 18 years. Riding with her today is her friend of 16 years, Robin Taubcomer. And once again on the 64th Armed Services Day Parade, our city treasurer, Tim Goodrich. Tim Goodrich, elected to the City Council 2014, City Treasurer June 2022. Riding with him today, his wife, Hannah Lamb. Riding also with them, their son, Josh, daughter, Sierra. Mr. Goodrich served 4 years active duty, including 3 deployments to the Middle East. Sir, thank you for your service and thank you for being here today. Taxi Waters. You did, but... Ladies and gentlemen, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. United States Congresswoman Maxine Waters, serving her 18th term in the House of Representatives, proudly representing the citizens of California's 43rd District. That includes Torrance, Gardena, Hawthorne, Inglewood, Lawndale, Compton, parts of Los Angeles as well. Congresswoman Waters has made history. She was selected by her peers to serve as the first African American and the first woman serving as a chairperson of the House Financial Services Committee. Congratulations. Congresswoman Waters is now ranking member of the Financial Services Committee. She's co-chair of the Alzheimer's Disease Task Force, also a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the House Progressive Caucus, a strong advocate for women, children, small businesses, veterans, and seniors. Welcome to the parade, ma'am. And ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Ted Lieu. Congressman Ted Lieu, previously serving on the Torrance City Council and the state legislature, also served in the U.S. Air Force on active duty. And we honor Mr. Lieu riding with his wife, Betty Lieu, president of the Torrance School Board. Round of applause for them. And if you hear engines rumbling overhead, it's probably a Fairchild PT-17. Tell you a little bit more about it as we get a look at it, but there it is. PC-17 straight overhead. Monocoque primary trainer with the U.S. Air Force and the Royal Air Force during World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Al Maritsucci, our California State Assembly member. Round of applause. Assembly member Al Maritsucci, representing the 66th Assembly District, located in the Los Angeles South Bay area. An El Camino College educator, former Torrance School Board member, and president, former chair of the Assembly Education Committee. Mr. Maritsucci has been a longtime champion for public education. Welcome. Brigadier General Antoinette Mulholland, ladies and gentlemen, along with Command Sergeant Major Christy Hawkins, representing the 311th Sustainment Command. This is the U.S. Army Reserve. They're headquartered in Los Angeles. The 311th, commanding and controlling units, elements, activities, providing operational and tactical level combat service support to forces across the spectrum of operations. As I look overhead and see what we've got coming. Might have to kind of call it by ear here. But I'm going to guess that those are Stearman PT-17 cadets. The cadet, military trainers, seeing extensive service preparing pilots for military service, once again in World War II. Fantastic that we have this array of historical planes to watch. Major General William J. Pendergast, the fourth, sir. Commanding General of the 40th Infantry Division, California National Guard. Major General Prendergast has commanded the 40th Infantry Division since November 2024. Welcome, sir. And you'll notice that many of the planes that fly overhead, whether they're the Stearmans or the Douglases or the North American Aviations or the Sky Trains, they usually make one pass coming west to east, and then they fly around and try to make another pass. So if you hear me announce it and you didn't really get to see it before it went over, you might get to see it again. And that, I believe, is the Stearman PT-17, once again coming over, the cadet. And for thousands of American combat pilots, this was their very first taste of aviation, the plane you just saw come overhead. Ladies and gentlemen, Rear Admiral Rich Jarrett. Rear Admiral Jarrett, a native of Charleston, West Virginia, a 1996 graduate of the United States Naval Academy, his 30-year career, serving in a variety of positions supporting both the Atlantic and the Pacific fleets. Distinguished career, I might add. Commanding officer of the Littoral Combat Ship 102. Commander Fleet Activities, Yokosuka, Japan, and Chief of Staff for Commander Navy Installations Command. He assumed command of the Navy Region Southwest, June 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, overhead, North American M10 3As. Another of today's featured aircraft. Pilot and owner John Culliver, Zamperini Field. Ladies and gentlemen, in front of us, Colonel Elizabeth White. This is United States Air Force Colonel Elizabeth White, Deputy Commander of Los Angeles Air Force Base. An award-winning writer, a graduate of both the University of Minnesota and Pepperdine, Colonel White, dedicating her career to acquisition and strategic planning. I can hear some of the bands in the distance here. I'll tell you a little bit more about those North American N-1033As. They're based in Zamperini. The owner, John Culver, is a well-known airshow performer with his USMC War Dog aircraft. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Andrew Andy Dermanowski, a round of applause. Space Force Colonel Andrew Dermanowski, commander of Space Base Delta III and Los Angeles Air Force Base, a West Point graduate. Former Army intelligence officer, 4 combat tours. Colonel Dermanowski supports over 7,000 personnel at the only active duty military base in the Los Angeles area. And we welcome him. Round of applause. And ladies and gentlemen, approaching the stage is the Torrance Unified School District Combined Band and Color Guard. This is the first time ever our Torrance schools have combined to form this band so that with everything going in their favor, you might see them at the Rose Parade. A talented group of Torrance's best and brightest student performers They're the brainchild of West Torrance High's band director, Vince Banham, South Torrance High's band director, Caitlin Brock, North Torrance High's band director, Brian Smith, and Torrance High's band director, Eric Hankey. Supported by more than 30 band and color guard staff members. Watch them now.
Five, and there's three of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, the performance is a medley of salsa marches, including Washington Post, The Thunderer, and Stars and Stripes Forever. Quite fitting. Ladies and gentlemen, the Torrance Unified School District Combined Band and Color Guard. The Combined Band and Color Guard.
I guess they're in order, but he's going to be in the white. I guess having
Okay. I'm told this is Ralph Gonzalez in front of me, and these are our World War II veterans. A round of applause. Please join us in welcoming the veterans of the United States Armed Forces, distinguished men and women, answering the call to service, defending our nation with courage, with honor, unwavering dedication. Today we're here, we recognize their sacrifices. We express our deepest gratitude for their service to our country. That looked to be a Beechcraft going overhead, ladies and gentlemen, as we were speaking. That's a T-34 Mentor, widely used by the Air Force and the Navy for pilot training in 1953. Once again, our World War II veterans. Joining us in the grandstand, some of the names that you'll see, some of the people you'll see come by. Ralph Salcido, beginning his military journey in 1944, enlisting in the U.S. Navy on his 18th birthday, serving 2 years during World War II in the South Pacific. Ralph Gonzalez as well. You'll recognize some of these names. You've been to the parade before. You've seen them come down. You've seen them. You've honored them. They deserve it. Ralph Gonzalez serving in the United States Navy from 1943 to 45 during World War II as a bowgate operator aboard a Higgins assault landing craft. Mr. Gonzalez took part in amphibious landings at Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and the Philippines. He's seen action, and now he's here to honor us. In the White Mustang, that's Billy Sloniker, serving as a staff sergeant and a tail gunner aboard a B-17 Flying Fortress, part of the 3rd Division 8th Air Force assigned to the 385th and the 550th Bombardment Squadron. Mr. Sloniker in the White Mustang was honored for his bravery and his dedication. The Purple Heart. Ladies and gentlemen, the American Legion proudly marching in today's parade, the sons, daughters, and children of the American Revolution. Patriotic organizations made up of descendants of the first veterans and supporters of independence, including early allies from Spain, France, and Native America, helping us discover Revolutionary War ancestry, preserve history, and celebrating America's 250th anniversary. This is the American Legion family, Post 359. These folks out here today are representing our nation's largest veterans service organization, the American Legion. Its auxiliary members as well, serving, advocating for veterans and military families, carrying on a tradition of service back to 1919. That was a passage of the GI Bill, by the way. The parade vehicles highlighting military history, a legendary M35A2 deuce and a half. And we got a troop transport. This is carrying Army veterans from the Republic of Korea Army Association, reminding us freedom is never guaranteed. Round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. These are VIP classic cars you see coming by, as well as military vehicles. Some of the classic cars have included a restored 1946 Dodge, a 1969 Barracuda, and rounding it all out, the American Legion posse and Legion vets on horseback, the Silmar Cowboys, known across Southern California for supporting veterans, mentoring youth, and sharing their equestrian skills in parades everywhere. The Jeeps you saw come by were 3 historic military Jeeps, driven and ridden by veteran Iowa crew members and American Legion members, honoring the legacy of the battleship and the sailors who served aboard her. Beautiful horses, ladies and gentlemen. These are our vets on horseback. And once again, these groups honor our armed forces, celebrating it service and parade gatherings all across the country, reminding us the freedoms which we thank them for safeguarding. And approaching the viewing stand, Sons of the American Revolution. These are the Sons of the American Revolutionary Color Guard, joined by the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Children of the American Revolution. These patriotic nonprofit organizations made up of descendants of America's first veterans and those who supported the cause of independence, including the important allies from Spain, France, and Native America. And ladies and gentlemen, the Daughters of the American Revolution. And the Children of the American Revolution, of course. Folks, by the way, they have local chapters right here in the South Bay. They help families discover their ancestry. Perhaps you already know that your family's attached to them, but maybe you don't. It'd be nice to know that we all came from the nation's founding in one way or another. And they're very open-armed. They welcome new members. And approaching now the Veterans of Foreign Wars. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Auxiliary. Two of the largest nonprofit veterans organizations in the nation, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause for them. Collectively, they have over 200 years fostering Americanism through patriotism, advocating for veterans' benefits, the rights of veterans, their families, active duty, advocating for the community, and riding on the float, Department of California VFW 4th District Commander Timothy Ibarra, 4th District VFW Auxiliary President Madeline Cunningham Colston, and valuable members of the 4th District. And now give a warm Torrance welcome to the Vietnam Veterans of America South Bay Chapter 53. In their 43rd year of existence, ladies and gentlemen, covering all branches of the armed forces. Proud, again, to be participating in the Armed Forces Day Parade. The Vietnam Veterans of America is the only service organization specifically chartered by Congress to serve Vietnam veterans and their families. But by the way, they equally provide service to veterans of all wars, past and present. The founding principle of the Vietnam Veterans of America is never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. And by the way, folks, they don't just go to meetings and ride in parades. They're well known in the halls of Congress for lobbying for improvements in health services, the retention of VA properties, support of the military. These are the guys that are going there and talking to the people on Capitol Hill to make sure we get the money we need to support our veterans. And we thank them. And a warm welcome, please, for the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces veterans. Republic of Vietnam Veterans Historical Group and SoCal MVCC presenting its lineup, representing Asian American veterans from the Korea War through Afghanistan. The Chinese American GI Project honoring veterans from Chinatown to the battlegrounds, welcoming Sergeant Joseph Wong, a Korea War combat vet who served with the 1st Marine Division from 52 to 55. The Japanese American Veterans Association proudly honoring Vietnam veterans, Marine Captain Miyoshi and Ishigaki, Army SPC Hayashi, SSG Yoshida, Coast Guard Lieutenant Yoshioka, and VA Dr. Yoshikawa. Navy Commander Henry Lee, an Air Force pilot, escaped during the fall of Saigon. These families and reenactors proudly preserve the legacy of the Republic of Vietnam.
One minute out.
Now, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you were around, the Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce and UCLA Health, as they do every year at this time, hosted the Armed Forces Day 5K walk and run. So you saw probably some of the fastest in the area, and you saw the rest of us there for a good cause, getting out there and doing what we can. And we love that event. It's always great to see people you know and from a neighborhood you know, but approaching, as we speak, the winners of the 5K, the fastest man and the fastest woman, Paul Lovano and Michelle, I'm going to say this wrong, but I apologize up front, Marasigan. Round of applause. And they're all riding together. But ladies and gentlemen, these are the fastest people in town. And coming up next is the Epirus Leonidas Array. This is a vehicle kit from Torrance's very own Epirus. Epirus, by the way, a defense technology company dedicated to overcoming the asymmetric challenges, if you will, inherent to the future of national security, with drones first among them. This is the Leonidas. It features a high-powered microwave system integrated into a commercial truck platform for mobile drone defense. This system projects an invisible shield of energy, a real-life force field, to stop any electronic threat in its tracks. It truly is the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen, and it's being displayed before us. And approaching the stand, the Torrance Mounted Posse, with some of our youngest members on board, saddleback, as it were. It's hard to wave and hold on at the same time, but I think they got it mastered. Round of applause, please. They have been serving as a Goodwill Ambassador since 1953, led by Brittany Roman. Participating in community events, educational opportunities, highlighting the history of this city and the value that horses have had here over time. Ladies and gentlemen, since 1941, this group has been lifting the spirits of America's troops, strengthening the well-being of the people that serve in America's military and their families, a private nonprofit military support organization. Please welcome the USO. This is our Los Angeles Orange County region operating centers. Those centers are at LAX, John Wayne Airport as well, Orange County, providing USO programs, services to troops and their families. The USO, over 550 volunteers, serving more than 230,000 troops this year alone. Ladies and gentlemen, from the front line to the front line, from the home front to the couch in your living room and all over the world, the USO has been there for us and our service members, and they send their gratitude and support. Marching into place before you are several brave young men and women who are preparing to join all of the various branches of our United States military. This continues to be one of the largest mass oath of enlistment ceremonies conducted publicly. It's a valued tradition of the Torrance Armed Forces Day Parade. These young men and women are truly the cream of the crop of our society. They represent less than 1% of all eligible men and women in this nation, and they will continue the honored tradition of defending the freedoms that we've enjoyed in this nation for over 239 years as we approach our 250th birthday. And now, administering the oath of enlistment, our Grand Marshal Marine Brigadier General Omar J. Randall.
Good afternoon. I'm Brigadier General Randall, and I will give you your oath of enlistment. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same, to the orders of the President of the United States, to the orders of officers appointed over me, according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Welcome to the most powerful armed forces in the world. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just witnessed the oath of enlistment. Proud young men and women seemingly being honored by a North American Aviation B-25 bomber straight overhead. The PBJ, used extensively in World War II in every theater, including the war in the Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, United States Marine Corps Chaplain Lieutenant Jeremy Carr. Chaplain Jeremy Carr, serving as Battalion Chaplain for Combat Logistics Battalion 13, a California native, hailing from Carmel Valley. ordained by the Free Methodist Church USA, beginning his ministry as a church pastor in Oroville, California. Chaplain Carr is now a Navy chaplain, serving Marines and sailors, applying the same crisis response skills in support of the United States Marine Corps. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot on display here. We're expecting United States Marine Corps 5th Battalion, 14th Marine Regiment. I think you're looking at an M777 howitzer, an A2. This is the 5th Battalion, 14th Marines, activated in 1943. The Redondo Union High School Marine Corps JROTC. A round of applause. These are the cadets, ladies and gentlemen, of the Redondo Union High School Marine Corps JROTC. And approaching the viewing stand, the Bishop Montgomery High School Thunder by Night Marching Band and their color guard performing in honor of Armed Forces Day. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks our 11th parade performance, continuing to honor our nation's heroes every step. Under the direction of Jacob White, the color guard director Jillian Flom, talented students showing their dedication and respect for those who serve. Another PBJ bomber straight overhead as we welcome the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Los Angeles District. Ladies and gentlemen, the Corps of Engineers, serving 226,000 square miles of Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, and a sliver of Utah, protecting 420 miles of shoreline from Morro Bay to the Mexican border, established in 1898. Civil works, military construction, flood risk mitigation, navigation. And the colorful creature in the front seat, that's Bobber the water safety dog. That's the mascot. And Bobber says, kids out there, be safe in the water. United States Army Reserve 311th Sustainment. Ladies and gentlemen, the 311th ESC. Please welcome them to the Torrance Armed Forces Day Parade. They're Army Reservists headquartered in Los Angeles. Their most recent deployment was to Kuwait, 2020 to 2021, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. A C-47 Skytrain going overhead. That's the Virginia Ann. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the 311th ESC. Providing operational and tactical level combat service support to forces across the spectrum of operations. 311th, making sure that our soldiers are always equipped, supplied, and supported. And approaching the platform, an all-boys Catholic school with a military tradition, St. Catherine's Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, St. Catherine's, founded in 1889. And in the wake of St. Catherine's, California Army National Guard mine-resistant ambush-protected MRAP ATV. We need one of those horns on the streets of New York City. What do you think? This heavily armored, off-road capable military vehicle, designed to drown out any announcer, anywhere, anytime, at any parade route. A very special vehicle, ladies and gentlemen, combining survivability features of the earlier vehicles with improved mobility. And right behind it is the palletized load system, or the PLS. And welcome to the North High School Army JROTC. Round of applause. Founded at North High School, September of 1997. An honor unit with distinction since 2000, and they still are today. Ladies and gentlemen, the JROTC isn't just training for the military. They're here to help students develop their citizenship, their patriots, their self-reliance, whether or not they decide to go into the military. These are life skills, and we honor them for teaching our kids. The U.S. Navy, NTAG Pacific, ladies and gentlemen. These are the sailors of the Navy Talent Acquisition Group Pacific. Active recruiting in Torrance and the greater Los Angeles area. If you or anyone you know is looking to serve, here's where you go to sign up. And approaching the stand, the only active duty Air Force band west of the Rockies, the United States Air Force Band of the Golden West. And hot on their heels, United States Air Force recruiting. These are the Air Force Enlisted Ascensions Recruiters Sea Flight Fearless Cowboys, representing the 369th Recruiting Squadron. And by the way, right in front of the viewing stand, if you happen to take a peek, is a 2020 Ford Exposition wrapped in striking black Air Force decals. And yes, folks, the trunk is fully decked out with a PlayStation 5 set up for the ultimate Air Force gaming experience. Strong, proud, and ready to serve. Round of applause for this Air Force recruiting outpost. Folks, right along the parade route, we can see the Western Museum of Flight presenting their Northrop F-5A. It's a freedom fighter, defending the skies of more than 31 countries worldwide, powerful member of the free world's air defense posture. This, by the way, is a supersonic jet. It's powered by twin GE J-85 engines. It carries Sidewinder missiles on its wings. On its nose is a 20-millimeter cannon. A cannon on the nose, Sidewinders on the wings, going faster than the speed of sound. A beautiful example given to us by the Western Museum of Flight. Round of applause for them. Approaching the bandstand, the Richardson Middle School Band and Color Guard, pleased to be making their annual appearance at the Armed Forces Day Parade. These are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, folks, and they're performing Miss Liberty by Carl King under the direction of Miss Carrie Willett and instructed by Marie Willett. Richardson Middle School, ladies and gentlemen. Approaching the stand, the United States Coast Guard Maritime Safety and Security Team. Please welcome the U.S. Coast Guard. And approaching the viewing area is a 29-foot response boat from the Maritime Safety and Security Team, Los Angeles, Long Beach. Walking proudly alongside the asset today are Coast Guard members representing the massive total force effort of LA Long Beach. They represent Sector Station 8's navigation, LA base, Long Beach base, as well as Coast Guard cutters George Cobb, Forrest Rednow, Robert Ward, Terrell Horn, and Benjamin Bottoms, the very best of our Coast Guard. United States Coast Guard Auxiliary personal watercraft, the vessel Odesso II, owned by Commodore Al Verde, a 25-foot 2007 Sea-Doo 255 Tomcat, equipped with a full navigation suite. And that might be Commodore Al Verde there. Round of applause. No, he's in the next boat. So we've got the Odesso II, we've got the Odesso, owned by Commodore Verde, a 22-foot Sea Ray. That's equipped with a full navigation suite, Starlink capable, by the way. featuring a planning hull with an inboard outboard 351 cubic inch 230 horsepower motor. Top speed 30 knots. Quick response, effective operation in emergency situations. And here's the Odesso 2. And we'd like to say a big, fat, warm thank you to Al Verdi for bringing these watercraft every year and for all his help with the Coast Guard and patrolling LA Long Beach, keeping us safe. Folks, a warm Torrance welcome for the Jefferson Middle School Auxiliary PE class. Making their debut at the Armed Forces Day Parade, a spirited team of 31 students, led by advisor Wendy Sweet, captains Emily Pruder and Madeline Sandoval. After 10 strong years as the Jefferson Spirit Club, this is their first year as an official PE class, welcoming all grade levels, all genders, forming at pep rallies, school sporting events, twirling flags, and batons with pride. And amazingly, half this team, fully 50% of this team, just started twirling this year. Ladies and gentlemen, the fabulous, talented students at the Jefferson Auxiliary PE class. Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, the United States Space Force, the U.S. Space Force, protecting our country, the freedom to operate in space, keeping it secure, keeping it stable, accessible for military space power, and new waves of innovation, the Space Force. These are the Guardians. And leading the Guardian Space Base Delta III Senior Enlisted Leader, Chief Master Sergeant Rajab Kagembe. The Guide and Bearer, Master Sergeant Stephen Ham. And right behind these Space Force soldiers, a glimpse of the future, U.S. Space Force Vulcan rocket model. That's a model of the Vulcan Centaur. It was certified last year for national security space launch missions. And ladies and gentlemen, the Beach Cities Cadet Squadron 107 Knights Civil Air Patrol. An active part of the South Bay for over 77 years, Civil Air Patrol, a non-profit organization chartered by Congress, the official civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Their duties include emergency services, aerospace education, a cadet program, the members of which you see before you, offering teenagers ages 12 to 20 training in aerospace knowledge and opportunities for flying. And as we speak, let us welcome Ambassador Christian School. Ambassador Christian, founded in 2013 right here in the city of Torrance. Ambassador, by the way, is a college preparatory school giving education to students in middle and high school from a biblical foundation. The cornerstone of their education is God. Although they do excel in academics, athletics, and the arts, it's an exciting time to be a Lion and we honor Ambassador. By the way, they're very grateful to have a strong partnership with the City of Torrance and Wilson Park. So come by. You can watch baseball, volleyball, soccer, basketball games. This is Ambassador. No, Toto, you're not in Kansas anymore. You're in Torrance, California at the Armed Services Day Parade. And we'd like to thank Dr. Barker, Dr. Michael Barker, Torrance resident, for founding Ambassador Christian School, located right next to Wilson Park. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Hollywood's own, the 300th Army Band. Southern California's only Army Reserve Band, an exceptional ensemble, a subordinate unit of the 63rd Readiness Division, headquartered in Mountain View. Under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer 4 Jeff Smith, musical support for military ceremonies, community engagements, and Armed Service Day parades. And ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude today's parade, thank you so much for joining us in celebrating the spirit of service, patriotism, and community. We extend our deepest gratitude to all of our participants, volunteers, sponsors, and especially the brave men and women of our armed forces, past and present, whose dedication and sacrifice protect the freedoms we cherish every day. On behalf of the City of Torrance, thank you for being a part of this proud tradition. Have a safe and wonderful evening, and look forward to seeing you again next year.